Stand up straight and look me in the eye, new recruits. Now you listen up and you listen good. If you're watching this, then that means you've been selected to join the dedicated staff of the SCP Foundation. Tell me, soldier, do you intend to give your life in the service of the cause and strive to secure anomalies of all kinds, contain those anomalies, and protect the innocent general public from their influence or knowledge? Now that's what I like to hear. Here at the Foundation, we have collected some of the deadliest, most sophisticated, and strangest weaponry the world has ever seen. Forget everything you know about combat, because I'm taking you all back to school. Sharpen your pencils, and get ready to take some detailed notes, because I'll be taking you into the Foundation Armory for a first-hand look at some of the most powerful and anomalous weaponry we have come across in our years of operation. We try to avoid using any of these specimens for combat purposes, but in this line of work, you never know when you might need to be ready to head into battle against any government, an alien species, or even evil itself. So our motto is what? Always be prepared for the worst. Besides, one of these little pea shooters might wind up being the key to eventually neutralize an SCP-682, Infernal Lizard. Anyway, let's get down to business. Let's start with the big guns. Meet SCP-044, secretly manufactured by German engineers during the Second World War. 044 is a howitzer, a large-range weapon similar to a cannon. If you're intimidated by its size, you should be. It's 251 metric tons of artillery power, and its unusual qualities keep going. Unlike other howitzers, which use a breech for loading shells, 044 uses a giant air compression chamber. Any object that can fit into the weapon's muzzle can be used as ammunition. Once an object has been loaded in, the howitzer somehow weakens its molecular and atomic bonds, transforming it for ideal impact. Once the weapon is fired, the matter in the barrel is shot out at a high speed in the form of a glowing red slug. Slug is in projectile, not the animal. Get it together, recruit, equal to the mass of the original object loaded into the barrel. The largest slug produced so far was 19,500 pounds. The result of loading the administrator's pickup truck into the muzzle of SCP-044. Up next, a weapon that packs a real bite. I don't normally stoop to puns, but a sense of humor is required to keep up morale around here, so yes, that was a play on words. Don't get used to it. SCP-127 appears to be an ordinary MP5K PDW submachine gun, with one notable exception. It is alive. Aside from its outer shell of steel and polymer, tests have indicated that it's made of living organic material. When fired, the gun does not expel bullets, but teeth. They look like human teeth, but DNA tests found no match for any species on Earth. 127 features semi-automatic and fully automatic settings, and produces an audible groaning sound when it switches between the two. So far, it doesn't seem to be any deadlier than any ordinary weapon of the same type, but never underestimate the importance of psychological warfare, of what it might do to an enemy soldier's thought process when he sees teeth flying at him at lightning speed. Up next, we have not a gun, but a blade. SCP-034 is a knife carved from pure obsidian, with an estimated age of approximately 1,000 years old. In all that time, it has not lost its edge and remains just as sharp as if it were freshly made. But that's not all. Whoever wields this knife is able to take on the appearance of another person, as long as they have cut a piece of their intended target's skin off with said knife. It is the ultimate tool for espionage. Now, this next weapon may look like a toy, but if you spend enough time at the SCP Foundation, you'll quickly learn that nothing is exactly as it seems. SCP-3108 shares the appearance of a Nerf-branded dot gun, but this piece of machinery does a lot more than shoot simple foam dots. Created by Nathan Pierce, this gun has the ability to turn anything it hits into a worse version of itself. A dollar turns into a quarter. A piece of printer paper becomes one-ply toilet paper. And now, here's where its combat applications come in. A human man turns into a Neanderthal. Hit a man enough time with his Nerfing gun, and he'll degrade further and further each time until he's essentially just a tiny earthworm you can crush beneath your boot. It's nothing to play around with. Speaking of highly destructive weaponry that looks like a toy, SCP-1068 is a collection of model rockets, measuring about 1 meter in length apiece. On the back of their packaging, a note is written, "Harness the rocket power of Dr. Wondertainment's new line of model rockets with the Atom Buster." This pint-sized monster launches 1,000 feet in the air before plummeting into a climactic explosion of nuclear proportions, Truman would be proud. Utilizing a state-of-the-art light and sound system, the greatest weapon ever detonated can be used again on your front lawn. You can even customize your model with the accompanying realistic decal sheet to make its launch a more awesome one. Though these pint-sized rockets don't pack the punch of a real nuclear missile, they're more than capable of causing permanent damage to the eyes and ears of anyone in the vicinity when they're detonated, as well as knocking out all electrical communications in the area for up to 20 hours. For a harmless-looking explosive that can render an opponent blinded, deafened, and unable to cry for help, these will do the job just fine. Have you ever heard of the bystander effect, recruit? It's a concept that, when faced with a horrific event, many people instinctively will do nothing to stop it. Instead, they will simply stand by. SCP-668 weaponizes the bystander effect and guarantees it no matter what atrocities you commit. It is a 13-inch chef's knife with a rosewood handle that, when held by a human being intent to commit violence against each other, gives off a psychic signal that renders all nearby sentient beings unable to intervene. Its effects have been reported as feeling like an overwhelming sense of apathy. Additionally, it renders the victim of the attack unable to defend themselves. There's really no limit to the amount of violence SCP-668's holder could get away with. But don't get any ideas. This knife is under high-level containment. Sometimes a weapon isn't a blade or a gun. Sometimes it's a simple piece of plate glass, like SCP-3154. I say simple, but you know the drill by now. It's a bit more complicated than it looks. SCP-3154 is a triangular piece of glass, 16.2 centimeters long and 8 centimeters wide. When used to attack a person, the glass puts them into an unusual state, referred to in the official file as a Sigma state.
And if I hear you making any Sigma male jokes during this presentation, mark my words, I will snap your pencil necks like stale breadsticks.
A Sigma state is characterized by the following: absence of breathing and heartbeat, blood settling in the lower parts of the body, and causing noticeable discoloration, gradual reduction of body temperature, stiffness, and a dramatically decreased immune system. If a person is left in a Sigma state for too long, worms, flies, and other environmental organisms will begin to feed on their body. Now you might be wondering what's so special about this. A Sigma state sounds like it's just regular old death. And you're right, it is. This glass isn't special because it kills people. It's special because it somehow prevents anyone from recognizing its victims as dead. Depending on who sees you use this piece of glass to attack someone, you could quite literally get away with murder. Up next is SCP-5175, a detailed knife with a Moroccan style of design and an uncertain origin. When handled by most people, this is nothing than a regular, if ornate, blade.
However, when handled by the right person, currently an individual known as POI 3445, the knife is able to remove any life form from reality entirely.
It doesn't just kill them, it eradicates them. Once the knife in the hand of its designated holder has pierced a target, black mist begins to pour from the target's wound. It wraps around the target, and they disappear completely, teleported out of our reality and into an extra-dimensional space known as the Land of the Forsaken Suffering. The one who wields the knife is also accompanied by the spirit of a Japanese samurai named Guillotines Hanzo, a great warrior from the 1800s. It's not just a knife capable of removing its targets from this world, but it also comes with the experience of a long-dead veteran fighter. SCP-958 also has a great deal of military expertise to offer. It is a toy robot made of plastic and tin, standing at 19 centimeters tall. On the bottom of the robot's right foot, there is a text printed that reads, "General Beep by Dr. Wondertainment." General Beep is activated by flipping a switch on the back of his head, at which point it is able to speak and move on its own. When it is introduced to a child under the age of 13, General Beep will teach them about military history, and will eventually teach the child how to build copies of the toy robot, as well as weapons including guns that shoot paint, cannons that fire plush toys at high speeds, and guns that shoot beams of focused light hot enough to melt steel. It may be a toy, but this general is not playing around. Up next, we have a set of anomalous hand grenades, SCP-5969. Nice! These grenades are stored inside a World War II era wooden crate and do not present any unusual properties until they are exposed to water in a liquid state or to particularly humid air. Once they have been exposed to enough moisture, The grenades will instantly detonate whether the pins and spoon have been removed or not, while normal grenades expel metal shrapnel on explosion. Instances of SCP-5969 propel seeds that sprout into flowering plants as soon as they hit a solid surface. If these plants make contact with the skin of a living person, they will begin to suck out the person's blood at a speed of 15 milliliters per second. This will continue until the host has bled to death. Really gives a new meaning to the War of the Roses. SCP-5871 is not used for physical warfare, but rather the metaphysical types of combat. It is an obsidian ritual knife with a gem-encrusted handle. When the knife is used to symbolically kill an entity via a specific classified ritual, it destroys that entity retroactively. This knife has been used to take care of multiple dangerous intangible anomalies since its creation, and it is ready to be used again if the need arises. Here we have SCP-4282, also known as Mutiny's Bane. If you're thinking it looks like something right out of a pirate ship, you're right. It is a .44 caliber single-shot black powder handgun, and it operates exactly like any other gun of its kind. However, the bullet that leaves the gun does not exit the barrel in a straight line. Instead, it has a target in mind as soon as it's been loaded, regardless of which way the gun's holder aims it. Once it is fired, SCP-4282 delivers a deadly gunshot wound to the back of the head of the nearest living human being guilty of piracy or stealing a nautical ship. The wound is identical every time. The bullet enters through the parietal bone and exits through the right eye socket. This gun only comes in handy once in a blue moon these days, since piracy has been on the decline for the past couple centuries or so. But you never know when you'll come across the old skull and crossbones. You can never be too prepared. Now then, Nikola Tesla was responsible for some of the greatest technological advances in history, including the Tesla coil and the remote control. If only he invented a way to keep me from losing the damn thing, but I digress. No, what did I do? One of his lesser-known inventions is SCP-2700, which he created with the intention of producing a directed energy weapon. It is comprised of 3 parts, which when combined would produce a chain reaction that could destroy the universe as we know it. To explain in layman's terms, it would create the opposite of the Big Bang. That's one we'd better keep under wraps. Probably forever if we can help it. Up next, we have SCP-2818, an array of 16 firearms that look identical to Barrett M82A anti-material rifles, with one difference. The words H&W Mod Number 9 are printed on the guns, where the Barrett identification would normally be. These firearms load like a standard Barrett M82A1, but if someone pulls the trigger, they will immediately disappear. A round will then be fired from the barrel of the gun, but it is not like the one loaded into the gun's chamber. Instead, it is comprised of the organic matter made up of the person who pulled the trigger, converted into the shape of a 50 cal BMG round. These rounds match up with the estimated weight and density of a human being that has been compressed into that size and shape. It converts the soldier into the ammunition. Talk about human resources. SCP-186 was discovered in 1917 and is the location of an unrecorded military conflict between the Imperial German Army and the Russian Provisional Government. From this area, the SCP Foundation recovered and contained a collection of unusual weaponry, which are now kept in the Foundation facility. First, a modified version of the Skoda N1909 machine gun, which causes rapid tumorous growths within the body of any organism larger than a lab rat. There were mortar shells that contain a gas that causes animal cells to be unable to die. A coil of concertina wire was discovered, covered in an unidentifiable hallucinogenic substance with permanent effects on the human brain. Eventually, they discovered grenades filled with a gas that is able to penetrate any gas mask and cause the feeling of being lit on fire, and a number of French rifle cartridges filled with powdered human bone. We've talked about weapons that shoot and stab, but we haven't yet covered one of the most powerful tools of warfare, the tank. That brings us to SCP-802, which resembles a World War II-era Renault Char B1 medium battle tank. Unlike other tanks from this area which need to be operated by a soldier inside, this tank operates entirely on its own. There is no one, I repeat, no one inside running its controls, but it still continues to operate independently. It has undergone severe physical damage, but it is still plenty capable of keeping up in a fight. It achieves a speed of up to 40 kilometers per hour and can take hits from anti-tank weapons without faltering. It has caused over 47 casualties since being contained, so whatever cosmetic damage it sustained doesn't seem to have hurt it too much. Strangest of all, music plays from inside the tank's hull with no apparent source. Usually this music is from the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Though its purpose is uncertain, some researchers believe it to be a form of psychological warfare intended to unsettle the tank's perceived enemies. Now then, SCP-705 is kept inside this 5-ounce container of Play-Doh, which keeps it dormant and harmless. If you open this container, however, the squishy red substance inside begins to move. Hundreds of tiny humanoid shapes pour out of the clay, turning into miniature Army Men. Now these aren't your usual Army Man toys though. They're outfitted with completely functional automatic weapons. They're also highly aggressive and territorial, choosing locations to invade and working together to take them over. They're sentient, understand English, and operate within a militaristic hierarchy. Most impressive and troubling of all, however, is their ability to multiply. Now get your mind out of the gutter, recruit! If the tiny soldiers encounter another container of Play-Doh or a similar model clay, it will also spring to life and become a new army of tiny soldiers. Once the army's out of the can, they will remain active until they've been stuffed back inside. Now you've probably heard of the guillotines used to execute the powerful during the French Revolution. SCP-374 is one of these guillotines, constructed from an oak frame and a sharp steel blade. When used to execute a human being, something bizarre happens. The head of the victim becomes overtaken by the personality of a man from the French Revolution named Jean-Philippe Horace Donatien for a duration of 35 minutes. Now, pardon my French. It is able to answer questions during this time, though it tends to be uncooperative due to its mistrust of the Foundation, which, considering it becomes conscious only after a head is chopped off a human body, makes some sense. Then we have another pistol, but one that is nothing else like we've seen today. SCP-1998 is a pistol of unknown make and model. The peculiar thing about 1998 is its lack of any ammunition. Rather than firing any kind of bullets, the gun fires a pulse of energy from an undetermined power source. These pulses of energy have no effect on a target that is not the human body. If it hits a human, however, it has a notable effect on the brain, particularly the motor cortex, the primary auditory cortex, and the hippocampus. Once someone has been hit, 3 things happen. First, the target turns and sits down in front of the person wielding SCP-1998. Then, the target becomes paralyzed and has no control over their physical movement. The target will then listen to and believe anything the person firing SCP-1998 says to them. The operator of the weapon is then able to rewrite the victim's memories and give them commands, which the victim will follow as closely as possible as soon as they can move again. Victims of SCP-1998 have described the effects of the weapon as horrifically painful and traumatic, and that comes as no surprise. It is essentially a weapon that allows its user to fight against free will itself. Now get to work! And remember, as you walk past the containment cells, keep your eyes to yourself. You might see something you don't want to see, or something that really, really doesn't want you to see it. Now, go check out SCP-3108, the Nerfing Gun, and SCP Elite Mobile Task Force X-Blade for more combat and weaponry at the SCP Foundation.